Just ahead on Encouragement for You, how can you function as a leader in a healthy manner in today's pressure-packed world? Dr. Lee Colan, co-author of the book Healthy Leadership, joins us for Encouragement for You.
Welcome to the Encouragement for You podcast, brought to you by Encouragement Communications. In just a moment, your host, Don Hawkins, will introduce today's episode. But first, a word from our sponsors.
Faith shapes how we live, and it should shape how we steward our money too. That's why 316 Financial exists. We're an online bank created to help people align their finances with their faith and their values. At 316 Financial, 10% of our profits are given back to faith-based ministries, supporting work that makes a lasting difference. It's a simple idea. Everyday banking can be a powerful way to live generously, and you don't have to sacrifice quality to bank with purpose. 316 Financial offers modern online banking, no monthly fees, free ATM access nationwide, and competitive interest rates designed to help your money grow responsibly. Whether you're saving for the future, managing everyday expenses, or looking for a bank that reflects what matters most to you, 316 Financial makes it easy to bank with intention. Learn more and open an account today at bank316.com. Banking services are provided by 316 Financial, a division of Primis Bank, member FDIC. It started with a knock at the door of a small clinic. A grandmother stood there holding her grandson. He was burning with fever. The nearest hospital was hours away, and she had no way to get there. Through This Moment Matters, a ministry of Global Ministries and UMCOR, that clinic had medicine. It had trained staff. It had hope. The boy received treatment that day. The grandmother left with tears in her eyes and relief in her heart. This is what happens when the church refuses to look away, when we decide that every life carries sacred worth. Your gift today helps strengthen health systems, support migrants, fight hunger, and build peace in communities under strain. Visit giveumcmission.org/future and be part of the story God is still writing, because this moment matters.
Dr. Lee Colan is an organizational psychologist and advisor to CEOs. He applies an in-depth understanding of business, science, people, and organization to help leaders and organizations grow. Lee and his wife Julie co-authored the book Healthy Leadership, and Lee joins host Don Hawkins to discuss that subject.
You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. I thought, what a great statement in terms of leadership. There are people that fear paralyzes them, and that may be one reason why some leaders don't thrive. What do you think?
Absolutely. And I think particularly this culturally now, we're very kind of focused on our own wellness and taking care of ourselves, and that's all great. But we also see the byproduct of that is that oftentimes people will kind of wait till they feel like they have the confidence or the courage to do something. And then we tell them, like, you may never feel that way. You actually have to act first. Your action will build the competence and then builds confidence. Yeah. And it's a self-reinforcing cycle. So we believe that people just need to kind of get out and do something. And you may not always feel like you're ready to do it or you want to do it. But if you take the action first, it has a very positive ripple effect and reinforcing.
I have a picture in my mind as you're describing that of me holding my arms out to my son, and he is jumping into a swimming pool. And he's a little bit fearful at the time. He's not fearful anymore. He's 50 years old now, so he'll jump into anything. But the reality is he learned to overcome fears because of a certain element of faith. Talk about faith in your personal life maybe has helped you overcome fears.
Absolutely. It's funny. I was just on a podcast recently. They asked me like what I was afraid of. And I really had to think, and I'm not saying this, I'm not patting myself on the back, but I was like, it's really all glory to God. I was like, I don't really fear anything because it's all been taken care of for me, right? I know where I'm going. I know. So I don't fear much. But honestly, starting a business 27 years ago, probably one of the bigger fears was just how do I provide for my family? Right.
Sure,
Had
right.
three kids and lots ahead of us. And we were fortunate enough to be able to try to send them to a private school, which we had to take a big gulp to do that, to a Christian school. But I would say fear of providing for my family was probably the most overriding one. And then God just showed his hand. And every time we were in our greatest need, he would provide for us. And so now, even as in any business, we go through kind of ups and downs and different cycles. That even is not a fear anymore. I was like, you know what? Let's just keep serving well. Let's just keep sowing seeds of goodness into the world and taking care of people. And we know that God will provide for us. And I feel funny saying that because we do a lot of strategic planning with clients.
Sure.
So people ask me, what's your strategic plan? I was like, you know what? We don't really have a strategic
Trust
plan.
God.
we just want to serve well.
Trust and obey.
That's right. We always tell our kids, like, do your best, let God do the rest. So
you guys make love one of the cornerstones in your book, and that's not the usual approach to leadership in this day and time.
No, it isn't. And it's funny, we were bouncing this off different executives, particularly even like human resources executives. They would look at it and go, wow, I don't know about love in the workplace. That doesn't feel right. And I just said, well, it's only the most spoken about, written about, sung about topic in the world. Why does it belong in the workplace? And this healthy leadership model is really kind of a servant leadership approach. So we just felt pretty strong, even though people steered us away from it. Well, why don't you use the word caring or something else? I said, no, it's about love. And we always tell the best leaders, if they really love their people, which really we just define as doing what's in the best interest of others.
And if you're going to integrate Christian faith into your work in the workplace, whether it's quote unquote Christian or secular, which is not a distinction I believe in at all. But a lot of people see that love is essential in all of those places. In fact, that 1 Corinthians 13 basically says love is essential. You don't have love, you're like a sounding gong or a clanging cymbal.
Absolutely. So we just feel like it's foundational in any relationship, and why not a relationship in work? So we've just talk about that there and what it means to be able to demonstrate love in the workplace and doing what's in the best interest of others and putting others before yourself and serving their needs. So we just feel like, and honestly, now that the book's been out for a little bit, people are like, oh, we love that part. We love the fact you included that. So even though there's resistance, we prayed over that. And we always think about how, even though we have a secular business, we view it as a ministry, and how I always pray. We're working on a new book now. Like I just pray, like, how do I embed biblical principles? We believe biblical principles, and any truth or real truth, like biblical truth, is timely and timeless. Right? So how do we embed that into our work so people could see it? It may feel transparent to them, but they're seeing kind of what we're all about. A
lot of love leads to collaboration because you're working with people. You talked about servant leadership, that fitting in there. But using principles from Nehemiah, certainly one of the ways to integrate some leadership principles into this. Now, here's a question for you. Are these principles that somebody who's in vocational ministry, or let's say a pastor, for example, could use? You mentioned you wrote this for the workplace, but how does it fit ministry?
Yeah, we try to speak in simple truths. So it's all really biblically based, even though we may not be quoting scripture, that type of thing. So our greatest compliments on some of our books we'll have someone in ministry or a pastor or even a priest saying, hey, you've changed how I preach this message. And they'll actually send us their message.
Send you the message.
And they'll use our model. And then they'll just embed scripture into it. So that's always a great compliment to us. So we believe that everything we're doing here is really very transferable into any setting.
I want to back up a step before we get into the framework of your book, but I love the framework of your book. I want to tell you, and I love the metaphor you used, leadership principles. You have 3, and you call those the operating system, the OS, using the metaphor of a computer. And the 3 healthy leadership practices, use those as like the apps. And I think anybody that has worked with a computer sort of understands that. Maybe you could speak to that before I ask you the other question.
Sure. And I guess another way to look at it, we say that the principles are really about the mindset. So even if someone's not even in the workforce, they could read the first part of the book about the mindset of love, positivity, and growth. Those are the 3 healthy leadership principles or the mindset. And it's really about how do you bring your best version of yourself to any interaction in the workplace or at home. So it's really the mindset and the practices we call the skill set. But really, again, you can have these great skills or these great apps, if you will. But if your operating system is not working, you don't have the right mindset or the right heart set, it's going to be all goofed up. Right? So we really believe as a leader, we've got to get our mind right before we get our team right.
Yeah.
So,
and I love the fact that you started with love in that whole spreadsheet there. You have love before positivity and love before growth. Right. Some people would put positivity first. Some people would put something else first. But if the greatest of these is love, seems to me that's a great place to start. Talk about what the difference is in today's workplace that really makes it difficult to thrive, Lee.
Yeah, there have been a few changes, Don, in just the shift in kind of worker values. It used to be all about, my paycheck. People need to make a living. I get that. But over the past decade or so, and this is pre-COVID even, the shift has really gone toward what's the purpose? What's my purpose in my work? Which we think is a very healthy shift. And people are asking that question. And they also want to know, what's the purpose of the organization? Are you doing something for the greater good? Are you making the world a better place to live? So that shift from a paycheck to focus on purpose has been a big deal. And then there used to be a very key about worker satisfaction, all that. And now that shift has gone to more about development. How am I growing? How are you helping me grow my skills personally and professionally? And then the other thing was, if you remember any performance appraisal back in the day, always used to be, what are Lee's 3 weaknesses and what are you going to do?
Oh, yeah. First, your 3 strengths, then your 3 weaknesses, or maybe the other way around. Yeah. Or if you have a hard shell boss, maybe your 5 weaknesses and your 1 strength.
There we go. But the worker today really just wants to focus on what are my gifts and how do you see how do you bring those out in me? And I love the quote from Marcus Buckingham, who wrote a book called Love and Work, but he also wrote First Break All the Rules. He said, our job as leaders is not to put in what God left out, but it's to draw out what God left in. So it's really about seeing the potential in people and drawing that out.
We'll be back with more after a brief word from our sponsors. And don't forget to listen for Dawn's live weekend talk show, Encouragement Live, heard Saturdays at 7:05 Central Time on radio networks and stations around the country, as well as on the worshipchannel.org.
There's a lot of buzz today about gold and silver. I hear people saying I should invest. What do you think about this at His Faithful Stewards?
At His Faithful Stewards, we view gold and silver more as retirement or wealth insurance than an investment. When the market goes down, the price of gold and silver goes up. We also believe highly in buying pre-1933 coins, not gold and silver on paper. Those coins are not reported to the government, and so they maintain privacy.
What's the problem with gold and silver paper investments?
We look at that like boarding the Titanic and being offered a paper that says you have a life vest instead of being offered an actual life vest. Which would you want? I mean, if we have a recession and businesses start closing, how would you access your gold and silver when you need it?
To learn more about how to best utilize gold and silver coins in your portfolio, visit hisfaithfulstewards.com and set a time to chat. That's hisfaithfulstewards.com and set a time to chat.
Now let's return to the discussion on healthy leadership with Dr. Lee Colan and Encouragement for You host Don Hawkins.
One of the things you talk about in that first chapter is leading indicators. That almost sounds like an investment type terminology. Give us an idea of what you and Julie were talking about with leading indicators and how they can be useful.
Well, if you think of a continuum, so on the left hand side of the continuum is your financial metrics. So any business, ultimately, are we making money? Can we stay in business? Are we making a profit? Can we reinvest? So the financial metrics. And then before that, in order to get your financial metrics, you have to have good customer metrics. Take care of your customers. But in order to take care of your customers, you have to have good processes and procedures, right, to be able to do that. And then as we start moving to the other direction, now we have to think about how do we get good processes and procedures that are executed well? Well, we have to have good employee metrics. We have good retention. Do we train them well? Do we communicate well? Then we're saying ultimately to get employees performing well, the most leading indicator are your leadership metrics. Are your leaders coaching people up? Are they finding that potential in people? Are they communicating well? So that's what we're basically saying there is that if you're the captain of your ship, in essence, and you're looking out on the horizon, those are the leading metrics. What happens, most people, when they're looking at their wake,
look in the rearview mirror.
They're looking at the financial metrics. And I'm not saying to ignore those. We're saying take a balanced view. Yeah. but your leadership metrics in your business are the best indicator of what's going to happen 3, 6, 9, 12, 24 months down the road.
Yeah, you talk about purpose over paycheck, development over satisfaction, strengths over weaknesses. Yeah. And by the way, that fits well with Proverbs 24:5, one of my favorite verses. It says, a man of understanding strengthens his strengths. And you've literally got the Hebrew word kezek there in the verb form and the noun form. And if you think about the motif of exercising, physical exercise, how do you get physically fit? You exercise. I used to run 5 miles a day back in the day. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't do that anymore. There are too many creaky joints around. But, people used to tell me, man, I wish I could do that. And I say, it's just a matter of a choice.
That's right.
And same thing with exercising, eating the right kinds of foods, those kinds of disciplines. I love the statement that you make. Healthy leadership is not about the leader, but it starts with the leader. Elaborate on that, Lee, if you will.
Listen, I believe life is not about us either, right? Our lives are meant to give away, right? Yeah. So I think the best leaders understand that it's not about them. It's really about their team, but they have to start that and they have to initiate the fact that okay, I'm here in a role of service to you. How do I help you be successful? And it's easy to say, a lot of leaders say, if my team's successful, that's all that matters, then I'm successful. It's hard to internalize that. So the best leaders really feel that from their heart. Yeah. And then it comes out as behaviors like, okay, I'm going to put their priorities first. I'm going to really take time to get to know them. I'm going to really see who the human being is behind the employee. That's one of the key principles here, too, in seeing the human behind the employee.
There used to be a principle called MBWA.
Of course.
Management by walking around.
That's right.
And it seems that old tried and true principle ties directly into your first principle on this of love and taking an interest in people and connecting with people. Unpack that a little bit, Lee.
And it's really just, you want to understand, you want to walk a day in their shoes, right? So you want to understand what are their challenges. But it's not even just at the workplace now. It's like, do I know that someone's getting ready to have his third child and they've got a busy household and they're struggling, or someone's mother-in-law is ill and they're moving in with them and that's kind of bogging them down? Well, I'm not looking to give people excuses, but we do want to understand it's a whole human being that's coming to work. Back in the day, it was kind of like you just bifurcated it. I have one part of my human being that stayed at home, that had fun, and another part came to work, and never the two shall meet.
Yeah.
But now this world is really about, we're bringing a whole human to the office, and as a leader, it implores us to be able to kind of understand what they're going through, what's important to them, how do I motivate them, how do I support them. So I think that's really important.
To me, the biblical foundation for that is Galatians 5:16. By love, serve one another. Lee, you've already laid out for us the 3 foundational leadership principles: love, positivity, and growth. And we've already established that love is about the most biblical place you can start in terms of any kind of relationship, right?
That's right. Absolutely. No matter the setting's irrelevant, honestly. We always want to lead with love, whether it's on the home front or on the work front.
But we think about CEOs. We don't usually think of loving people. We think of the hard driving kind, the kind that basically sometimes leaves people in his wake.
Yeah.
But that's not your model.
No, it isn't. And also it's not really reflective of today's leader, actually. I mean, it's not the old school Jack Welch kind of from General Electric. These new school leaders understand the kind of worker they're working with. They understand what they need to do to thrive, and they really do lead with love. And I think like a Colleen Barrett, rest her soul, from Southwest Airlines, was really a forerunner in this. She always talked about leading with love. Ken Blanchard, a mentor of mine who wrote the 1 Minute Manager, talks about leading with love. But they were ahead of the time. But now really it's become more of a norm in the workplace to be able to make sure you're managing the whole person. You have to lead with love.
I love Ken Blanchard's material. The 1 Minute Manager was great. Sure. In fact, I did a shameless knockoff and titled it The 1 Minute Christian.
Ah, beautiful.
And Ken was nice enough to write a review. But, and you mentioned Southwest Airlines and Colleen, the CEO there, and they used the word love, L-U-V, they spelled it.
That's right.
Sort of like Chick-fil-A and chicken. Sometimes you misspell just to get people's attention.
That's right.
But talk about that kind of loving leadership that those people modeled and how it differed from the Jack Welch approach.
Yeah, Colleen was amazing. It's just a wonderful human being. And so just for example, like she knew that she needed to connect with people. So she had someone helping her, but like she would literally write like birthday cards to every person like on our team.
Yeah.
She would just be herself. I mean, I think that's part of it. It's like, so not, I mentioned before, you have to see the human behind the employee, but that goes both ways. As a loving leader, you have to let them see the human behind the leader.
Yes.
Who are you? Like, what are you all about? What's important to you? So I think there used to be this feeling of you have to have this facade. I need to know it all. I need to be tough, that kind of thing. And now it's like, hey, I'm just a human. I have the same insecurities and struggles and fears as anybody else, but I just happen to be in this role. So I think with that, it has to be a level of courage and humility to be able to have those kind of conversations and communicate in that way with people to kind of show that love. So really, it's not just, again, it goes both ways. It's you have to be open with them so they can be open with you.
Positivity. Now, what do we mean by positivity? That's an interesting word. Norman Vincent Peale many years ago wrote The Power of Positive Thinking, and not everybody shares his values. Tell us about positivity as you see it.
And just simply defined, it's managing your negative emotions and increasing your positive emotions. And so there's a whole science of positive psychology that started about a decade ago, Don. And so this is really probably the most science-based element on here in the whole model, believe it or not, even though it sounds soft, like, this is not about just, keep a stiff upper lip, keep smiling and hug everybody. It's not about that. It's really about understanding how your mind works, how complex it is, and the natural biases of your mind. Our brain, if you think about it, our brain is designed simply for survival. That's God designed our brain for survival, right? And it's really a prediction machine. But because of that, it also has a negativity bias. In other words, negative input feels more powerful than positive input.
Yeah, I've heard it said that you have to have 10 positive statements to overcome one negative statement, maybe more than that.
That's right. My wife always did that when the kids would do something mean to each other. She'd go, okay, Cameron, sit down and say 5 nice things about your dog, about your sister, But she intuitively knew this.
Yeah.
Julie's one of just 1,000 or so people certified in the world as a positive psychology practitioner. So this is all very science-based about understanding how the mind works, the tools you could use to manage kind of the negative emotions and increase your positive emotions. So, for example, one simple thing is you could just speak to yourself in the third person. So if you think about your best friend, we give great advice to our best friend.
We sure do.
But we think about, do we speak to ourselves like our best friend? No, we're much harder on ourselves.
Oh, we are. We criticize ourselves. So negative self-talk,
Because we have that perspective with our best friends. But if we just take that third-party perspective with ourselves. So, Lee, you're going on to this interview tonight. You're going to do fine. Talk to yourself in the third person. It helps elevate your perspective and kind of give you a little bit more kind of distance versus just saying, "Oh, I'm doing this. I'm going to struggle. I'm feeling nervous." So just simply using the third person gives you a little bit of that perspective. There are lots of just little tools in here about that that help people kind of manage their own mind and ultimately create more positive emotions. We'll always have negative emotions and feelings, but the key is, do we have the tools to manage them? Exactly.
And you make this statement: to change your mind, you need to change your emotions and thoughts.
Right.
And there's a lot involved in that, and you go into some details there about emotions. You quote Dr. Dan Siegel from UCLA School of Medicine. The act of noticing and identifying the emotion helps to create some distance between the emotion and the intense feelings that accompany it. Right. I think that's a great distinction, and one that can be very helpful in dealing with those negative emotions, because the feelings may not be the actual emotion. They may just be the baggage that comes along with it.
Absolutely. And we always say you have to name it to tame it.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to name that emotion, to be able to kind of manage it a little bit. In fact, the average emotion only lasts about 45 seconds. But what happens is we ruminate on that emotion. So let's say I was disappointed about something. That feeling of disappointment only lasts 45 seconds.
Yeah.
But we've talked to people that carry that for 10 years because they keep thinking about it. And part of understanding our brain is that the more we repeat something, the more it creates a more synaptic connection that creates a deeper connection in our brain. So we have to be able to say, okay, I was disappointed. Let me understand why that happened. Let's name it. And then how do we move forward and start converting that into something more positive?
Boy, that's very practical. And you have 2 very helpful tools that you include a page or two beyond that in the book, Healthy Leadership. Talk about those two tools. One of them is giving yourself advice you've already talked about, but the second tool you haven't touched on yet. Talk about mental time travel.
Yeah, time travel. Yeah, so I like this one because it is very practical. So something happens to you, and then you have to think, okay, someone, you get disappointed somehow, or you don't achieve a goal you wanted. And so you think to yourself, okay, what's the implication of this 5 days from now, 5 months from now, 5 years from now? So it just kind of puts you into the future, because sometimes things seem so big and overwhelming in the moment. Yeah. But the truth is, if you take that time traveling trip 5 years away, you're thinking, you know what, it's probably not a big deal. This is just a small bump in the road. It helps turn, I think, stumbling blocks into just stepping stones. So how do I use this now to make a better future for myself 5 years from now? But in the moment, things can feel very big and overwhelming, right? And those negative emotions literally reduce our peripheral vision. This is part of the broaden and build theory that say negative emotions, funnel, they make our options look narrower and narrow, and literally our peripheral vision gets narrowed in. So, remember our parents used to say, just take a deep breath, right?
Yes.
So that literally just lets positive emotions come in so we can see more alternatives.
Something you just said, turning stumbling blocks into stepping stones. I want to just park on that for a second. Sure. That's so important for us to be able to look at it from that perspective.
Yeah, and that's just another tool of just reframing, right? So looking at situations, I had this setback. Okay, if I look at it from a learning perspective, okay, what could I learn from this setback? How could I be better, right? How could I turn this stumbling block into a stepping stone? Okay, now, if I didn't have this setback, I might not have had this new level of self-awareness. I may not have been forced to learn a new skill or develop a new relationship. So how do you look at things in the moment as a learning opportunity for growth? And let me just be real. All growth and learning occurs when we're uncomfortable.
Yes.
So it's going to feel a little uncomfortable, but that's how we grow and learn. But if we could take that learning perspective and growth in the moment, it helps us versus like waiting for 5 years and looking back, oh, that's why I learned that lesson, right?
And we've all had that experience.
Sure.
And you have just transitioned us into the third of those three leadership principles: love, positivity, and growth. You have 5 principles for growth. Can you unpack those in 2 minutes?
Yeah. And growth is really just about finding, seeking those new insights, knowledge, and skills. That's really what it's all about. And so one is change is inevitable, but growth is a choice.
Ooh.
Life's always going to change, right?
That's powerful,
but this is right back to that mindset I was just talking about. The growth, if we could see how we're trying to grow from this change, then we have an opportunity. We could choose to do that, right? Another one is what gets watered grows. So if we reinforce those negative thoughts we have about ourselves or our perceptions, or reinforce or continue to invest in negative relationships, that's what's going to grow. So we have to see what are the kind of things we want to grow. We want to grow nice, beautiful flowers in the garden of our life.
But put some water on them.
Right, not weeds. One of them I already alluded to was growth almost always occurs when we're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? It's great to be in that phase of life where we're just cruising on cruise control. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
But generally, it's a nice place we kind of rest a little bit. We're not really growing.
Yeah.
So we really just have to get comfortable with discomfort a little bit. And then the last one is that when we help others grow, we grow.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Encouragement for You with Don Hawkins, host of Encouragement Live Radio and author of over 25 books, including Never Give Up and Master Discipleship Today. You can find more about Don and his books at encouragementlive.org. Encouragement for You is a production of Encouragement Communications. Editing by Phil Giebers. Production by Elizabeth Andrade. If you enjoyed what you heard today, we'd love for you to head over to your favorite podcast app and leave us a review. It really does help people find us. Stay encouraged and join us next time for Encouragement for You.
Is life feeling chaotic? I get it. I'm Rachel Wojo, host of the Untangling Life podcast. Don't miss the passionate encouragement and faith-based resources you need to help you clear your head and calm your heart. As Shell says, it feels like Rachel always knows what I need to hear. She keeps it real and is so humble. Her podcast is just the cherry on top. Enjoy Untangling Life with Rachel Wojo on lifeaudio.com or your favorite podcast app now.